Good morning, Year 4. It's Wednesday the 20th of January 2021. In today's English lesson, we will use notes to make a verbal summary. Could you go to a new page, write down the dates and LO please, and pause this while you're doing that. Right, well, just a quick starter on apostrophes again. Yesterday we looked at contractions, so when two words have been squashed together and you use an apostrophe, and the example here is don't instead of do not. But today I want to focus on possessive apostrophes. These show that something belongs to something or someone. For example, Molly's hat, pointing to the owner Molly, or the lady's coat. Okay, so that's what we're focusing on today. Okay, possessive apostrophes then. We have Bonnie's cat. So the cat belongs to Bonnie. So you need to point the apostrophe at Bonnie, like this. I hope you can see that. Maybe I'll choose red. Okay, the sisters' shopping bags. Okay, so there's more than one sister here. We don't know how many, but we know it's more than one. So we have to point to the word sisters. So we put the apostrophe there, pointing to sisters. If you have two owners, Mia and Tim own the dogs, so we've got to point to them. Okay, Harry's car, there's the owner, we point to Harry. Those gloves are Kia's, okay, so if they belong to Kia, we point to Kia. Let's have a look at these examples below as well. We've got two possible options here. So the boys' changing room or the boys' changing room, which one do you think is right? Well, if you think about a boys' changing room, it's not just for one boy. So it must be several boys we're talking about, in which case this one is wrong and this one is the right answer because it's pointing to boys, several boys, okay? What about this one? The dog's lead is broken or the dog's leads are broken. Where do the apostrophes go? All right, on the first one, we can see there's one lead. The lead is broken. So if it's one lead, it must be one dog. So we've got to point the apostrophe to one dog. So it must go here. On the second one, it says leads. So we've got several leads. So it must be several dogs. So we've got to point to dogs. So we put the apostrophe pointing outside the S to dogs. Your turn then. What you need to do is put possessive apostrophes into these three sentences. We've got Year 4's English books have gone missing. Our neighbour's party went on all night and the girls' changing room was locked. There are three possessive apostrophes in these sentences. So copy them out, put the apostrophe in. Remember, you're pointing to the owner. And pause this while you're doing it and I'll give you the answers in a second. All right, so on the first one, we've got Year 4's English books have gone missing. Well, the owners of the books are Year 4, so we need to point to them. So we will put the apostrophe here. Our neighbour's party went on all night. Now, this one is tricky. It depends how many people live next door. Now, I'm thinking it's a family, so it's several people, in which case, neighbours, and you point to them. If you thought it was just one person living next door, then you would have put the apostrophe here to just point to one neighbour. Okay. And on the final one, the girls' changing room was locked. Okay, well, the girls' changing room belongs to more than one girl. So we're going to have to point to the owners of the changing room, and that's the girls. So the apostrophe goes there. If you got those right, well done. If you didn't, can you make your corrections, please, preferably in a different colour. Just pause this while you're doing that. Okay, before we get started on today's lesson, can you add to your glossary? So go back to your glossary page. There are two words I want you to put in today. The first one is unravelled, which means when parts of a puzzle or mystery become clear. And the second term is military campaigns, which means battles and invasions. So just adding to your glossary then, which should be on its own page, pause this while you're writing down those two new glossary entries. Yesterday we reached the point in the story where Tutankhamun had been made king at the age of 9, and you were thinking about what you would do if you were in charge at the age of 9. So we're going to resume the story from that point. Due to Tutankhamun's young age, it was decided that Vizier I, who had always been close to the family and had married Nefertiti's wet nurse, would act as his guardian. Soon after this, another important decision was made on Tutankhamun's behalf, that he should marry, and his half-sister Akhenaten was chosen to be his great royal wife. Okay, so we need to make some notes on this page. What do you think is the most important bit? Or let's go for 2 bits of this that we need to pick out to put in your notes. So I'm not going to do it for you this time because it's very short. So let's have a look. Due to Tutankhamun's young age, it was decided Vizier I. Okay, so I think it's important you say that Vizier I was his guardian. I don't think we need to mention about marrying the wet nurse at this point. So in your notes, so you're going to add on to your notes. So remember, we're using bullet points. You need to say Vizier I would act as Tut's guardian. And the other note is that he needed to marry. So he married his half-sister, Ankhesenamun, I think it is, sorry. So you need to have another bullet point and you need to make a note about that. So we're carrying on with our notes from yesterday. So adding 2 from this page, Vizier I would act as his guardian and he would marry his half-sister. So just pause this while you're adding those notes. It was then announced that the new pharaoh intended to restore the old gods. It is unlikely that this decision was made by Tutankhamun. It was probably another decision made on his behalf, so that would have been his guardian making decisions for him. Nevertheless, Aten, the sun disk, was no longer seen as the most powerful god, and Amun, who was traditionally a very powerful god, was worshipped again. The palace at Akhenaten was abandoned, and the court returned to their traditional palace in Thebes. Now that the old gods, and especially Amun, were back in favour, everyone had to change their names again, this time replacing Aten with Amun, and so Prince Tutankhaten became King Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun and Ankhesenamun had known each other almost all of their lives, and when they married they seemed to be a loving couple. However, tragedy may have clouded their young marriage when they lost not one, but both of their babies. It is unlikely that Tutankhamun had much to say in governmental matters or the appointment of gods during his reign. But after the unrest of King Akhenaten's rule, it was extremely important to win back the support of the public and have a stable leader. This task fell to Vizier I, because of his influence as Tutankhamun's guardian. Right, what are we going to pick out here? So let's get my highlighter pen. You need to add to your notes, so a new bullet point. Let's have a look. It's really important that the god Amun was worshipped again. So let's pick that out. Amun was worshipped again. So you might add, so Prince Tutankhaten become King Tutankhamun. Gosh, lots of tongue twisters. You would also need another bullet point to say that 2 babies were lost. Okay, by the royal couple. Remember, they were just children themselves. It must have been quite a terrible shock for them. And it is unlikely that Tutankhamun had much to say. Right, so this is about Vizier I having lots of influence. Okay, so we're going to make those notes this time. This will be the first bullet point about Amun. Then it would be the one about the babies being lost. And then it would be the one about Vizier I having lots of powerful influence because he was Tutankhamun's guardian, which basically means that Vizier I was in charge, really. So just pause this while you're making those 3 bullet point notes about the information on this page. However, even Vizier I had a rival in the ambitious Commander-in-Chief of the army, General Horemheb. Now, do you remember we saw him before? We saw a picture of him on the first page of the book. Horemheb had risen to a position of power by reasserting Egyptian authority abroad. After Tutankhamun's rule, both I and Horemheb would go on to be pharaohs. It is thought that Tutankhamun did not take part in any military campaigns himself, possibly because of his poor health. Despite his poor health, no one was prepared for the sudden shock of his death. Records suggest that he was just 18 or 19 years old when he died, and to this day no one knows for certain what caused his death. The mystery of Tutankhamun's short life will continue to be unravelled long after his time. Right, so we're getting a real sense of the mystery here, which is why archaeologists have been so fascinated with Tutankhamun for all these years. So we're going to pick out information to just add to our notes. So the first bullet point, I think, needs to be that Tutankhamun had poor health. See that? So just Tutankhamun had poor health for the first bullet point. Then for the second bullet point, he was 18 or 19 years old when he died. Okay, and I think we need to mention about the mystery, don't we? So for that second point, let's also say no one knows for certain what caused his death. So you should have 2 bullet points for this page. Tutankhamun had poor health will be the first one. And the second one would be that he was just 18 or 19 years old when he died, and no one knows for certain why he died. So just pause this while you're making your notes. Here's the last bit of reading for today. Countless theories of how he died have been discussed over the years. Perhaps he was murdered. Both I and Horemheb had something to gain if he was out of the way. Or perhaps he died of natural causes. Scientists now know that he had malaria. But the biggest mystery that puzzled historians and archaeologists for many years was, where was Tutankhamun's tomb? Right, we've got a picture here of Horemheb and I arguing. Well, not arguing, but saying basically the reason why they might have wanted to kill Tutankhamun. I says, I am I, high official and also great uncle to Tutankhamun. I have political influence. Well, maybe he wanted all the power for himself and Tutankhamun was going to get in the way as he became an adult. This guy saying, I'm Horemheb, I command the army and have great military power. Maybe he wanted even more power and wanted to become the pharaoh. Tutankhamun could have been murdered. He could have died of natural causes. We don't know. What we need to do now is add a final bullet point to our notes about Tutankhamun's story, and then we'll have all that we need to go on to the next bit of learning for the week. So, what should we pick out here? Let's go for... let's say perhaps he was murdered. Or perhaps he died of natural causes. That could just be one bullet point. You could say he may have been murdered or died of natural causes, because we don't know. And I want to add in the final bullet point, because this is the one that's been really important over the years. For many years, people wanted to know where was Tutankhamun's tomb. So just add in 2 bullet points for this one. So one about how he died, whether he murdered or natural causes, and one about people wondering where his tomb was. Okay, add those in now while you pause the video. Okay, in our LO we mentioned we were making notes and we were using them to make a summary. Now, summarising just means making a short version of a long story, and we've already done most of the work. We've already picked out the most important points about Tut's life. So there's just 2 more things to do. I want you to read your notes from yesterday and today carefully. You should have quite a few bullet points, maybe up to about 12 or 13 bullet points that we've picked out all the information that we thought was important from the pages we've read. Once you've read those really carefully, I want you to just create a verbal summary. So all you have to do is talk about Tutankhamun. I'm not asking you to write the summary down at the moment. Okay, you can use your notes, but I don't want you to just read them out. I want you to try and remember most of it, but look back at your notes if you need to. Okay, so you'll be thinking about, okay, what was the start of his life? Who was his father? Who was his mother? Think about the wet nurse. Maybe think about his sisters. You'll be thinking about the kind of life that he led, what age he was when he became king, and then we start getting into the mysteries of his death. So try and make a verbal summary now. So read through your notes, then try and talk about his life as much as you can, just using your notes when you need to. You can pause this while you're doing that. Great, so hopefully you've managed to summarise the first part of the story of Tutankhamun by using your notes. Now we're ready to create a biography. If you remember, that means a piece of writing about somebody's life. You've now got lots of information about Tutankhamun, and we can move on to the next stage of our learning for the next couple of days. So well done.